Welcome back to the deep dive. If you're listening right now, I want you to do me a quick favor.
Yeah, set the vibe a little bit.
Exactly.
Sure.
Set the vibe. Look at your surroundings. If the lights are a bit too bright, maybe dim them down. If you are sitting in a stiff chair, move over to the couch.
Grab a blanket.
Grab a blanket, pour a warm beverage, tea, coffee, maybe a glass of wine if it's, that kind of evening.
Because today is a very specific kind of journey.
It really is. Today, we're stepping into a corner of the metaphysical universe that is, quite frankly, equal parts relaxing and absolutely spine-tingling.
It is a fascinating space to be in. We are looking at a moment where the veil, so to speak, gets very thin.
Super thin.
Right. And what is interesting is that when the veil thins out, the mechanics of reality don't get fuzzy or dreamlike. They actually get incredibly specific.
They do. We are diving back into the Seth Material today.
Yeah.
But, and this is a massive, but this isn't your standard Seth session.
Not at all.
If you are a long-time listener, or if you follow the material, you know the vibe. You know the personality. But today, we are encountering something, something weird, even by Seth standards.
Which is really saying something, considering we were talking about a multidimensional entity channeled through a writer in upstate New York.
Right. Now, before we unlock all the secrets of the universe, I have to give our mandatory disclaimer. This podcast will be distributed free of charge on all major platforms for educational purposes.
Perfect.
We are here to learn, to explore, and to get our minds a little bit blown. But we are strictly sharing this for educational reasons.
And purely for the sake of clarity and credit, which is absolutely vital when dealing with archives of this magnitude. The source material we are analyzing today comes specifically from session 407 of the early sessions, Book 8 of Seth Material, recorded on April 24th, 1968.
And a huge shout out to the publisher, New Awareness Network, for keeping these archives available. Without them, we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
We definitely wouldn't.
Okay, let's set the scene. It's 1968, Elmira, New York. We are in the living room of Jane Roberts, the medium, and her husband, Rob. Usually when Jane goes into a trance to channel Seth, it's a pretty specific production. What does that usually look like?
Well, typically it's a very high-energy event. Her features change noticeably. Her voice drops into a much lower register.
Like gravelly, right?
Yes, often described as gravelly or very masculine. She adopts this very specific persona we know as Seth. It's energetic, it's booming, it's authoritative.
He takes over the room.
He really does. Seth is a teacher, and he projects to the back of the room. He paces around, he gestures, he smokes cigarettes and drinks wine or beer. He is a presence that completely fills the space.
He's got that tenured professor who threw the textbook out the window and is teaching from pure life experience energy. Strong, heavy, a bit theatrical.
Exactly.
But on this specific night, April 24th, something is completely different. Jane goes under, but the Seth they know doesn't come out. Or at least not the Seth they are used to.
No. And Rob, who is sitting right there, scrawling his notes in shorthand, notices it immediately. He describes the voice as peculiarly gentle. That's the exact phrase he uses.
Peculiarly gentle.
Yes. It's lilting, it's lighter, it's careful. It's almost as if the entity speaking is tiptoeing through Jane's vocal cords.
That is the part that gives me the chills. Just imagine your best friend suddenly starts speaking to you, but the cadence is completely alien. It's not hostile, it's just other. It's refined.
And Rob documents the physical shifts, too. He notes that Jane's eyes are opening and closing very slowly. There are these long, deliberate pauses between phrases.
So no pacing, no beaming voice.
Exactly. It's not the rapid-fire machine gun delivery of Seth. It's someone or something else entirely.
So the million-dollar question, who is it? Because for a second you have to think, did she dial a wrong number on the cosmic switchboard? Did she cross wires with a completely different radio station?
In a way, she didn't hit a wrong number. She hit a direct line. She bypassed the operator altogether.
Oh, I like that.
The entity eventually identifies itself, but not with a name like Bob or Zorp. It identifies itself purely by its relationship to Seth.
This is where it gets really mind-bending.
Yeah.
Because the entity claims to be the source of Seth.
Correct.
It says, and I want to get this quote exactly right because it's just wild, wild. Seth is what I am, and yet I am more than Seth is.
It's a profound statement. It implies a hierarchy, but not a hierarchy of rank like a boss and an employee. It is a hierarchy of substance or volume.
It sounds like a riddle you'd hear from a sphinx. Seth is what I am, and yet I am more than Seth is. So help me visualize this. Are we talking about Seth's boss? Seth's dad?
Yeah.
or as I like to call him, Super Seth.
Super Seth is actually not a terrible way to visualize it, though it simplifies it quite a bit. To really understand this, we have to talk about two massive concepts in this material: the spacious present and personality gestalts.
Okay, let's unpack that, because usually when I think of a source, I think of something that came before. Like, my parents are my source. They came first, I came second. It's linear, cause and effect.
Exactly. In our linear time, cause always precedes effect. But in the reality these entities describe, time simply doesn't work that way.
Right.
The entity uses an analogy to help Rob and Jane understand. He says, I am what you would refer to as a future Seth, as Seth in a, quote, higher stage of development.
A future Seth. So essentially, Seth is channeling his own future self.
In a manner of speaking, yes. Imagine if you, 20 years from now, having learned all the lessons you're going to learn, having expanded your consciousness, could just pick up a phone and call you right now.
That is a logistical nightmare. Just picking up the phone like, new phone, who dis? And it's literally me, but somehow smarter and way calmer.
Exactly. But the entity is very careful to say this is only an analogy, because in their reality, the future isn't something that hasn't happened yet. It's all happening simultaneously.
The spacious present.
Right. They exist in the spacious present. So Seth and this future Seth exist at the exact same time, independent of each other, but deeply connected.
That is heavy. So they are independent, but one is a more evolved version of the other.
Yes. The entity explains that this new voice, is whole personality or a larger gestalt. And Seth is merely a portion of himself that he sent out specifically to communicate with Jane and Rob.
Okay, so if this source entity, let's just call him the source for now, if he's the big cheese, why hasn't he been talking to Jane the whole time? Why send Seth? Why use a middleman at all?
That's a great question, and the session addresses it directly. It really comes down to compatibility and translation.
Compatibility. Like computer software.
Very similar to software. Or perhaps electricity is an even better metaphor here. The source entity is alien to human terms. He has evolved so far away from physical reality that he doesn't relate to it emotionally in the same way Seth does.
So Seth is more down to earth.
Yes. Seth is closer to Jane and Rob. He understands the human condition. He still has those emotional elements that make him a really good, relatable teacher.
So Seth is relatable. He's the cool teacher who sits backwards on the chair. The source is what? The dean of the University of the Cosmos.
Or pure, unfiltered energy. Think of it like a transformer on a power pole. You have high voltage electricity running through the main lines. If you plugged your toaster directly into that high voltage line, what happened?
Toast is burnt, house is gone.
Right. You need a transformer to step down the voltage so it's usable by the appliance. Seth was the transformer.
He stepped it down.
Exactly. He stepped down the raw data, the raw energy from this source, into terms Jane could actually handle without getting overwhelmed. He was the translator, or, as the entity jokingly references, the delivery boy.
Though he clarifies Seth is more than a delivery boy.
Yes, because Seth adds his own personality and flavor to the message, which makes it palatable for us. But what happened in session 407, and this is why it's such a landmark moment, is that Jane's own psychic abilities had upgraded.
She got a hardware update.
She really did. She reached a point where she didn't need the transformer anymore. She could plug directly into the main line. She could handle the raw voltage of the source entity without Seth having to step it down.
And that's why the voice changed.
Yes. The voice changed because the filter was removed. This was a direct feed. And that gentleness Rob noticed. That wasn't weakness. That was care.
Because the energy was so strong.
Exactly. That was the entity being extremely precise and careful because the energy connection was so intense.
It's fascinating because the entity mentions that Seth usually acts as an intermediary, interpreting the material. But now the translation is happening automatically at Jane's end.
It implies a massive leap in her development as a medium. She is doing the heavy lifting now, subconsciously.
Which brings us to the physical side of this, because you can't just plug into a high-voltage cosmic line and not feel it in your physical body.
Absolutely not. And the physical descriptions in this session are incredibly vivid.
Let's talk about the cone, because that sounds like something straight out of a 1950s sci-fi movie, The Cone of Silence. But this was a cone of energy.
Jane describes feeling a distinct cone effect right over her head. She says it represented a massive source of energy. And unlike previous times where the energy might have felt overwhelming, she describes herself as a sponge.
A sponge. I love that image. Just completely soaking it up.
The entity says he is now soaking up energy within his physical system as a sponge soaks up water. And remember, Jane is referred to as Ruburt in these sessions, her male entity name.
Right, so Ruburt is soaking this up. But this wasn't just for kicks, right? Jane had actually been dealing with some real physical issues prior to this.
She had. The notes mentioned she had been suffering from jaw pain, likely from extreme tension. She had been having trouble sleeping. Physically, she was just run down.
Yeah.
But during the session, and the one just prior, she experiences a mysterious muscular release.
I think we all wish we could channel a high-voltage entity and get a free massage out of it.
It's even better than a massage.
Yeah.
The entity gets very biological here. It mentions a change in blood count, a decrease in white cells, and a general bodybuilding process.
A decrease in white cells. Usually high white cells mean your body is fighting an infection, right? So a decrease would mean the inflammation is gone.
Exactly. It implies the body is returning to homeostasis. The immune system doesn't need to be on high alert anymore. The physical system is replenishing itself at a cellular level.
But here's the kicker for me. The entity explains why she was sick or in pain in the first place. And it wasn't just germs. It was the ego.
This is a crucial insight from the session. The entity explains the exact mechanics of how we block our own vitality.
I feel like this is the part where everyone listening needs to turn up the volume. Because we all do this.
Yeah.
Every single one of us.
We do. The entity says that Jane or Ruburt had been reading portions of the material regarding the ego and personality, and in doing so, he attempted to set himself aside from the action.
He tried to separate the I from the experience.
Yes. The ego tries to maintain absolute control. It insists on a permanent, unchanging, stable identity. It says, I am this, and I am distinct from that.
Right.
But the entity argues that personality is composed of action. It's fluid. When the ego gains over control or tries to stand apart, it creates a blockage.
It's like building a dam in a river.
Precisely. And the quote from the text is chillingly accurate. It is impossible for the ego to block off specific connections. Therefore, any barriers effectively impede whole blocks of active and necessary vitality.
Wow. So you can't just say, I'm going to block this one scary emotion or this one stressful thought. When you put up the wall, you block the good stuff too. You literally block the life force.
You block the vitality, and the physical system suffers as a direct result. That jaw pain, that tension, that was the physical manifestation of an energy blockage caused by the ego trying to hold on way too tight.
So the cure, in this specific case, was Jane finally letting go.
Yes. The entity says the barriers to the energy have been let down, and once those floodgates opened, the energy rushed into the areas of her body that were hungering for it.
Hungering for it. That is such a visceral way to put it. It's like her jaw, her muscles, her they were literally starving for this energy, and her own mind was the only thing stopping it.
It really highlights the psychosomatic nature of health in the Seth cosmology. It's not just that psychological stress causes muscle tension. It's that the rigid maintenance of the ego literally cuts us off from our universal power source.
It makes you wonder how much energy we are all walking around blocking right now. Like, are my shoulders tight because I slept funny or because I'm trying to convince the universe I'm in charge of everything?
It is likely a bit of both, but honestly, mostly the latter.
So Jane is sitting there, soaking up this cosmic juice like a sponge. Her blood count is fixing itself, her jaw is relaxing, but mentally, she is going on a massive trip.
It's a deeply visual trip.
She describes seeing stars being born.
This takes us to the next massive theme in the session, cosmic origins. This is where the session shifts from the personal health of the medium to the fundamental structure of the universe.
Typical Seth Material. Hey, your jaw feels better. Great. Now let me explain the Big Bang.
Or rather, the psychic Big Bang. The entity speaks of these things called apex points.
Apex points. What exactly are those?
He describes them as points of contact that have absolutely nothing to do with time as we understand it. They are origins of new energy. He says, at these particular points, whole conglomerations of new self-units come into being.
Self-units. That sounds very, I don't know, manufacturing. But he's talking about souls or points of consciousness.
He's talking about the birth of consciousness itself. He describes these units being sparked into existence at these high energy points and then dispersing out into different dimensions.
Right.
But, and here's the crucial connection, even though they disperse, a sympathetic attraction remains between them.
A sympathetic attraction, like magnets.
Like a cosmic family resonance. The entity explains that the reason Jane can contact him specifically is because they share an origin point. They are, in a sense, from the exact same batch of star stuff.
That is wild. So even though this entity is a future Seth and explicitly says he is alien to human reality, they are essentially cousins.
Cousins, or perhaps different branches of the exact same tree that sprouted from the same seed at an apex point. The entity says, I look back on you as the selves from which I sprang.
There's that paradox again. I look back on you as the selves from which I sprang. So he comes from them, but he is also guiding them from the future. It's a total time loop.
It implies a fascinating nonlinear feedback loop. He is their future, but by communicating with them in their present, he is influencing his own history.
That is wow.
He says, this communication is nevertheless partially responsible in other dimensions for what you would call future developments in your own personalities.
So by talking to them, he's actively helping them become him.
Effectively, yes, he is pulling them up the ladder, but he fully acknowledges his alien nature. He says, I have sprung entirely away from you and would be alien in your terms.
I really appreciate the honesty there. It's not, hey guys, I am just like you. It's, I used to be like you, but now on something else entirely.
And that something else involves directing multiple selves across multiple dimensions. He mentions near the end, other portions of me are concerned elsewhere. I direct my many selves.
He's the ultimate multitasker.
On a completely cosmic scale.
It's interesting, though, that despite all this high-level cosmic talk star births, apex points, directing multiple dimensions, the entity is still incredibly grounded in the relationship with Jane and Rob. He reassures them.
He does. He senses their apprehension. Remember, Rob and Jane love Seth. Seth is their dear friend. Suddenly, Seth is gone, and this alien source is here. They might naturally feel a deep sense of loss.
Yeah, like your favorite teacher got promoted to principal and you just never see him anymore.
The entity addresses this beautifully. He says, I do not want you to feel I have taken away a friend. I am also a friend. And he promises that Seth will indeed return.
Okay, good.
Seth acts as the connector, and he will continue to appear as himself because Jane and Rob need that specific emotional connection for their own comfort.
It's a really touching moment of empathy from a being that claims to be entirely beyond human emotion.
It shows that higher development doesn't mean becoming cold or robotic. It means profoundly understanding the necessity of different forms of connection for different levels of consciousness.
So we have the cosmic origin story, we have the physical healing. But I want to pivot to the human side of this session, because while Jane is channeling the source of all sources, she's also just a writer named Jane who lives in Elmira, New York.
And this brings us to the crucial real-world context, Jane's validation. If we look at the notes surrounding this session, specifically Jane's personal notes from April 24th, 1968, we see a very human drama playing out right alongside the cosmic one.
Drama might be a strong word, but definitely a massive turning point. What happened in the mail that day?
She received a letter from an editor at Prentice Hall.
The holy grail for any writer. A publisher letter.
And not just any standard letter. They were suggesting that her manuscript, which was originally focused entirely on her ESP and dream experiments, be converted into a book dealing specifically with the Seth material.
This is huge. Up until this point, Jane had been kind of struggling with what to do with all this channeled stuff, right?
She was deeply conflicted. She describes her feelings in the notes vividly. She says, it is as if clouds of the worst sort have rolled away.
Clouds of the worst sort. That is heavy. She was carrying a huge burden.
She admits that she had been actively distrusting the material. She feared setting herself up as a false prophet. She calls it imposter syndrome, effectively, though she doesn't use that exact modern term.
That's what it was.
Exactly. She relegated the Seth material to the background of her writing because she simply didn't trust herself.
That is so incredibly relatable. You have this gift, this unbelievable flow of information, but you're terrified people will think you're crazy or that you're secretly faking it and you don't even know it.
And the letter from Prentice Hall was the external validation she desperately needed. It forced her to look at the material objectively. She writes, rereading some material, I was struck by the massive intellect behind it, the real beauty of the material.
She finally allowed herself to be impressed by her own work, or rather, Seth's work coming through her.
And she realized that her intellect and intuition are finally aligning. This is her absolute aha moment. She realizes this is her life's work.
It's funny, isn't it? She's channeling a multidimensional entity who is telling her the literal secrets of the universe. But she really needed a guy from Prentice Hall to say, hey, this is good, for her to actually believe it.
It is the ultimate human condition. We so often look for external markers of success to validate our profound internal experiences. But notice the timeline here.
Right.
This letter arrives, she accepts her destiny, she drops the ego barriers.
And then the super Seth voice comes through.
Exactly. The validation helped her drop the deep psychological resistance. Dropping the resistance allowed the cone of energy to form. The energy healed her physical body and simultaneously allowed the higher frequency communication to come through. It's all intrinsically connected.
To the perfect storm of alignment, mind, body, and spirit, and career.
And career. She even notes that she told her ESP class that from now on, they were going to study the Seth material from scratch. No more dabbling. This was the mission.
I love that. Okay, class, new syllabus. We are going to the stars.
And it's worth noting the humor she finds in it, too. She realizes she had been affected by the lesser writings of others. She had been reading other metaphysical books and doubting her own source, only to realize her source was the real deal all along.
Lesson learned. Don't compare your channeled entity to other people's channeled entities.
Comparison is the thief of joy, even in the metaphysical realm.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into session 407, let's try to synthesize what we've actually learned here, because we've covered a massive amount of ground.
We truly have.
We have a chill vibe where we realize that time is an illusion. We have future selves just hanging out in the spacious present waiting for us to catch up. And we have a chilling vibe where we realize that our own egos are actively blocking us from being healthy.
That's the core duality of the session. On one hand, it's vastly complex apex points, star births, multidimensional gestalts. On the other hand, it's incredibly simple. Stop fighting. Stop trying to control everything. Become a sponge.
The sponge method. I think I'm going to trademark that.
It's highly effective. The session teaches us that vitality, real, physical health, and energy is a natural state. It's what automatically happens when the barriers are down. We don't have to create energy, we just have to stop blocking it.
And the source of that energy might just be, well, us. A bigger, older, wiser version of us that is trying to send a care package from the future.
A care package of vitality, just waiting for us to simply open the mailbox.
Which brings me to a final provocative thought for everyone listening right now. The entity said Jane was blocking the energy because her ego wanted to set itself apart. It wanted to be the strict manager, not the fluid participant.
Yes. The manager creates the dam.
So my question to you, the listener, is this. What part of your life are you micromanaging right now? Where are you holding on so tight that you're actually squeezing the life out of it?
That is the ultimate question.
And what would happen if, just for 5 minutes a day, you decided to be a sponge instead of a stone? If you have a headache or you're stressed out or you're just deeply tired, what if you imagined that cone of energy right over your head and just let go?
You might find that the energy has been there all along, just waiting for permission to enter your system.
It's a spooky thought, but a deeply hopeful one. Now, we have only scratched the surface of this session. There is so much more in the actual texts. If this deep dive sparked your curiosity, and I really hope it did, we strongly encourage you to go straight to the source.
Please do. Study the original books. You can find the early sessions and the rest of the phenomenal Seth material at the New Awareness Network website and bookstore. That is sethcenter.com/Shirley Sessions.
Seriously, go check it out. Reading the raw transcripts yourself is a whole different experience than just hearing us talk about it.
It really is. It changes your perspective entirely.
A huge thank you to the New Awareness Network for publishing these incredible works, and to Seth and Super Seth for the mind-bending insights.
Indeed.
And one last time, just to keep the lawyers happy and our karma completely clean. This podcast is distributed free of charge on all major platforms for educational purposes.
We are just here to share the knowledge.
Thanks for diving deep with us. Keep your barriers down, keep your sponges ready, and we will see you in the spacious present.
Goodbye.
See ya.